When I woke up in the morning in a cheerful mood, I washed my face as usual and went to the kitchen. To my surprise, my wife had already prepared breakfast and was unusually kind. Throughout the morning, she showered me with compliments, which didn't happen very often. After I settled down at my computer to catch up on the news and surf the internet, my wife came up behind me, put her hand on my shoulder, and gently turned me toward her. Lily, my wife, stood in front of me in a light robe and kissed me unexpectedly. This gesture was unusual for her. Then she informed me that on that day, we would go to visit her mother in the village. I didn't like to go to my mother-in-law's house because there was always a lot of housework to be done there because she lives in the village. And my father-in-law was not there at that time. He was away on a business trip, so there was no one to drink with. But being in a state of euphoria, I still agreed, answering my wife, okay? Because I was very pleased, because lately my wife and I rarely have this happen, explaining it by the fact that she had a headache. When I started to get ready, it turned out that my wife had already prepared everything before I woke up. The cunning lady knew how to bribe me. When we got to the village, my mother-in-law was not at home. Lilia wanted to surprise her mother with our arrival and did not warn her. My wife, without wasting time, went to her girlfriend's, and I turned on the TV and opened a bottle of beer. When I went out for a smoke in the yard, I heard my mother-in-law's voice. It was coming from the neighboring house. Coming to the fence, I saw an interesting picture. Margarita, that's my mother-in-law's name, was chatting about something with a neighbor who grabbed her leg. She immediately removed her hands and began to look around. But from behind the tall raspberry bushes, she did not see me. It was clear from the expression on her face that she began to scold him, and they went to the neighbor's barn. Realizing that the mother-in-law was probably cheating on her husband, I inquired what was going on there. I climbed over the fence and slowly approached the structure. The barn was old and had many cracks in it. As I got closer, I could see how and what was going on in there. And let me tell you, for her age, my mother-in-law turned out to be just beautiful. I didn't expect to see her pulling stunts like that. When I looked back, I saw someone had entered my mother-in-law's house. Afraid of being spotted, I quickly made my way to the other side of the barn. Once I was sure the guest was returning, I wanted to go back to my original spot, but through the crack, I saw Marguerite looking right at me. She looked me in the eye and put her hand to her mouth to tell me to be quiet. I returned home, sat down in a chair and sipped my coffee, wondering how my mother-in-law could have done such a thing. I didn't notice when Lily came back, but I didn't say anything to her. I still wanted to hear Margaret's excuses. When my mother-in-law arrived, she hugged my wife, and they began to talk about something. I went out into the yard and smoked again. About 5 minutes later, my mother-in-law appeared on the porch and said to me, "Tom, please don't say anything to Lily, and let's talk about everything tonight." Without answering anything, I went to my wife's house. All evening, the mother-in-law behaved as usual, in no way giving any indication of what had happened. Sitting at home, Lilia called me to go for a walk with my friends, but I refused, saying that I was tired and wanted to sleep. Finally, left alone with her mother-in-law, she took out a bottle of moonshine and pickles on the table. After drinking a shot and a second, she began her story. "Tom, dear, you probably won't understand me, but my neighbor and I help each other out sometimes. He's lonely, and my husband no longer fulfills his duties. If you know what I mean, of course." Of course I understood what she was saying, but the rest of the words passed me by, and there was only one thought in my mind. My mother-in-law is some kind of woman of easy behavior. After drinking some more, my gaze stopped on my mother-in-law. She was sitting in her house robe, and I was even dreaming. Standing up from the table, I lifted her from the chair and led her to the bedroom. She didn't say a word. That's how I became a helper for my mother-in-law, because my father-in-law can't do it anymore. But it's my job, so I'll help in any way I can.